This is the Waupaca Area School District Board of Education meeting.
We'll get started. Before I call the meeting to order, we have the President's comments. I apologize that there will be some noise from the Commons area. I believe we have a dance practice going on. First of all, thank you everyone for attending, making time in your schedule so that you could join us. As a reminder, this is homecoming week. For those that may have had the opportunity, as I did, to attend, they had the Powder Puff football game as well as boys volleyball game this past Sunday. There was probably more excitement and screaming on the practice field and in the gym than I've heard for quite a number of years. So well attended. Last night was coordination. Our congratulations to the court. We do have 2 members of the board that are on the judging committee this year, which includes things such as the skit, the floats, and the window presentations. Today, Marky Ash was completing her 2nd round at the WIAA Girls State Tournament for golf. Last I saw, not all players were in. She was tied for 25th, so she had a very good round yesterday. You have to remember they have us in Division I for girls golf, which I'm not exactly sure how we qualify for Division I size-wise, but congratulations to Marky. Tonight there is a boys varsity soccer game at Denmark. Good luck to that team. Thursday, if you have the opportunity, we do have a girls volleyball game here against Waupaca Falls. Also, the JV2 football team is playing at Xavier. Friday, the homecoming parade at 5 o'clock with the varsity football game at 7. And Saturday, we have soccer, volleyball, and cross country. Not all is here. The soccer invitational is here. Cross country and volleyball are away. And that is concluded with the homecoming dance on Saturday night. With that, if everyone would please stand and join us in the pledge. Mr. Booby, if I could ask you to lead us in the pledge.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Call the meeting to order. Let the record reflect that we have all members of the board present. With that, I will call for approval of the agenda.
So moved.
Motion to approve the agenda.
Second.
And second. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you very much. We will then move on to public comment. Is there anyone from the public that wishes to address the board this evening? There being none, we'll move along. Next item on the agenda is approval of the minutes of the September 12th, 2017 board meeting.
So moved.
There's a motion to approve those minutes.
Second.
And
Motion and second.
I apologize for not getting to calling sooner. I do have a correction to the also present list. That would be to add Becky Lang to the list. Becky Lang, L-A-N-G-E. And also, I believe Mary Kay Ristos has an E on K. I'll check. And again, I apologize.
Okay, with those corrections to the attendance, does the motion still stand?
Yes.
Motion to approve with those corrections, second.
Second.
Any other discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. We'll move on to communications. Mr. Dean?
Okay. As part of our recent addition to the routine of our board meetings, we have Community Service Recognition Award that we would like to share with our partners from the Chamber of Commerce. If I could invite Ms. Terry Schultz and her board members to the front of the room. If I could ask Mr. Johnson to join me.
Oh, Oh, sorry. Come on in.
Oh, no, she's not getting some of your short book fun.
All right, a good showing.
All right, where are we here?
So the School District of Waupaca would like to recognize the Waupaca Area Chamber of Commerce in recognition of the significant and profound contributions to the district for advancing the education of all its students and for helping us to create a stronger community. With deep, heartfelt thanks and gratitude on this October 10th, 2017.
Thank you so much.
Steve?
Yeah, just a short one. It's actually our pleasure to be involved with the school district. We really know that our future workforce and our community comes out of school, and so it's a great pleasure to be able to work with the school and the students. So thank you very much. We really appreciate the recognition.
Yeah, thank you. And I would, Terry, I would just, I would offer that your role, the Commerce, the Chamber's role with the development of our new teacher program has been remarkably well received. So thank you.
Good. Glad to hear it. That's a fun one to do. So.
Excuse me, Mr. Meehan and Mr. Johnson, would you step in front, please, one more time, so
Pardon?
we get your total.
Just to get out of the picture.
Technical difficulties.
No, I bet
Want
she
us
wants
over
to.
it?
Come on, yeah.
Thank you. Thanks so much.
Thank you, everyone.
You're gonna have to tell me who they are, because I don't have to. So they're not all gonna be in the minutes.
The next item on the agenda under communications is the district administrator's report.
Okay, I've got a couple of real short items. This week has been proclaimed National School Lunch Program Week from October 9th through the 13th. So we want to give a big shout out and expression of gratitude to our newfound partners in Chartwells, as well as our food service employees. And one other real brief mention. Last week was School Board Appreciation Week. So our heartfelt gratitude goes out to the school board members for the long hours and dedication that you provide to this district, its students, and the community. So thank you.
Weren't you going to give us or dinner tonight?
Yeah, the cookies and coffee are right back there.
Oh, that was fun.
And then I'd like to also share with the board and the district the second district administrator's State of the District address. And the board does have a copy at their place this evening. Committed to excellence in education. The district's vision statement summarily outlines the intent behind everything we do here in Waupaca. Our district's teachers, support staff members, and building leaders provide our students with rigorous academic programs, personalized and career-specific learning experiences, along with the social and emotional skills that prepare them to be global citizens in an ever-changing world. In this school district, we are all engaged as educators and caretakers of our most valued resource, our students. It is imperative that we consider multiple metrics when assessing the performance of our students, and likewise our district. We know that the students here in Waupaca are more than one standardized test score, and similarly, our district is more than that which is reflected on the state report card. As we continue to focus on improving our instructional practices and ensuring all students learn at high levels on a daily basis, we know that the state test scores will ultimately take care of themselves. For that reason, the district is dedicated to identifying and employing an authentic, appropriate, and relevant definition of success. We consider our students successful when they graduate, as our mission outlines, confident and capable to achieve their dreams and make the world a better place. Our desire to prepare our students for success beyond graduation is among the most important and challenging tasks facing our community and our educators. The district and community have collectively responded to this challenge. Together, and over the course of the past year, we have engaged staff, community, and students in the development of the following innovative approaches to education: a renewed commitment to increasing student achievement, a multi-tiered system of support model that supports the academic, social, and emotional needs of our students, a refreshed district brand reflecting our desire to be a high-quality district, a dedication to transparent communication, such as the hashtag Waupaca Way 2K30, a community conversation. Waupaca Works, the implementation of college, career, and life readiness skills for our graduates. An improved facility for our adults in training at the high school. A proposed project-based learning charter school, and an improved multi-sport athletic facility, to name a few. We are educating a generation of innovators that are motivated by ideas and ingenuity. Students today learn in a variety of ways, which is why, in this district, we are committed to an education that emphasizes creativity, vision, communication, and other skills that cannot be measured through standardized tests. In the school district of Waupaca, we are committed to excellence in education. Thank you.
Okay, next item on the agenda is board monitoring. Going to the budget.
Yes, October is typically budget month, and so following the budget cycle, we have Mr. Carl Hayek, who is going to present the upcoming year's budget for us.
It takes 1,000 voices to tell a single story.
I know
daring greatly. Brene Brown quotes Theodore Roosevelt in her book, Daring Greatly, and I love this quote. This quote, I think, speaks to us. It states, "It is not the critic who counts, not the man who points out how the strong man stumbled, or where the doer of deeds could have done them better. The credit belongs to the man who's actually in the arena, whose face is marred by dust, sweat, and blood, who strives valiantly, who errs, who comes up short again and again. Because there is no effort without error and shortcoming. But who does not actually strive, but who does actually strive to do the deeds, who knows great enthusiasms, great devotions, who spends himself in a worthy cause, who at best knows in the end the triumph of high achievement, and who at worst, if he fails, at least he fails while daring greatly." I talked a lot about scarcity, the law of scarcity and the law of abundance when the athletic complex was being built. It was in the presentations. You saw the mathematical formulas I've had over the years of the law of balance. It's a mathematical equation. The law of relativity, it's a mathematical equation. The law of abundance is actually a law of mathematical equation as well. So is the law of scarcity. And I want to talk a little bit about this, and there's a train to this thought. So the law of scarcity says there's never enough. You're stingy with your knowledge. You resent competition. You think, I can get by with less than expected. You're pessimistic about the future. Tough times are ahead. You think small, you avoid risk. You think you're entitled. You're fearful. That's a mathematical equation of the law of scarcity. Fearful. But the law of abundance, on the other hand, says there's more to where this came from. You're happy to share your knowledge. You build trust easily. You welcome competition. You always say, like the song said, you can always give more than expected. You're optimistic about the future. You think big. You embrace big risk. And you're thankful and confident. So if we were to have used the law of scarcity and fear-based thinking, and we've heard some of this over the past year, if we would have employed that rather than taking risk, we heard things such, it's impossible to build an athletic complex, a common cafe, institute a new food service provider, move the district office and student services, and build a new career center and increase student achievement in 1 year. But it's not. The law of abundance, the mathematical equation says that. It's possible. We've heard we will be over budget. We haven't been over budget in 6 years. We've never been over budget. I haven't been over budget in 13 years doing this. So that's not true. That's fear-based thinking. Health insurance costs will skyrocket. No, they won't. Health insurance in this district has gone down 30% in 6 years, the best out of the 424 school districts, which is the second biggest ticket of our budget. So we won't get any donations for the athletic complex. Well, that wasn't true. I think we have over, what, almost $600,000 worth of donations. Some people may not like change and support these endeavors. That's not true at all. So the old district office in Havercorn Field won't sell. It'll sell. So they seemed to laugh at him, and he laughed back, his heart bursting with joy, because now he knew where his treasure was. And when you want something, all the universe conspires in helping you to achieve it. The law of abundance, the mathematical formula that makes things happen. Optimism, risk. So everything we do matters. Everything is linked. Everything is connected and causes change. There isn't one person in this district, whether it's a custodian, a food service worker, or the superintendent, or a board of education, or anybody that is any more important than another. We're all linked and connected and causing change. And what does that mean? This is what the multi-tiered system is all about. Everything is connected: academic, socioeconomic, technology. All the parts matter. So, children learn from what they see. We need to set an example of truth in action. So this 2017 and 18 budget is about us. It's about everything matters. Everything we do matters. It's interconnected. Future search, the community. So the purpose of the annual budget is to achieve educational objectives that will impact the future. It's a financial plan based upon budget priorities set throughout the year. Budget adjustments are made prior to the final certification of general state aid, which hasn't happened yet. It would happen shortly in the next few weeks. And the property tax levy to support the budget is submitted for consideration at the budget hearing, which is set at October 26th. October 26th coming up. So what are some priorities? We focus on balancing all needs of stakeholders, all of them, the community search, future search, all the students and staff and community, everybody's connected. The members continue to deliver the best educational possible with the community collective effort, which Greg spoke to in his address this evening. We continue to assess health insurance costs in conjunction with the Health Insurance Committee to reduce costs. When I came to this district 6 years ago, we put together a wellness committee. We put together a health insurance committee. What these committees did is they took ownership of their health insurance. They made the decision. They actually put the proposal to the board this last fiscal year coming into 17-18. And their analysis and understanding of health insurance actually brought probably a less health insurance increase, which is under 1%. So we continue to align food service requirements by offering nutritious quality meals to ensure those qualifying for free and reduced lunch get them. And now with our new food service provider, Chartwell's, they've really wanted to increase that participation in the food service and free and reduced. So we're moving in that direction. Provide continuous environmental safety compliance in conjunction with the district school safety council, keeping the district up to date with the latest safety requirements. So what are some other priorities? Continue the exploration of energy conservation methodology. What have we done? Look at the parking lot. They're all LED lights we put in this summer. So provide financial solvency by continuing to prioritize budget priorities in the long term, the big picture interests of the district. And we continue to maintain the building and grounds such as Waupaca's Learning Center, a gym floor refurbishment, and the 3 roof section replacement, which is our philosophy, the GFK philosophy. It's easier to fix the roofs when the sun is shining. So if all the roofs in the district are worth about $10 million and they fail every 15 years, whoever's sitting in my chair or the board's chair would have to replace those, have a $10 million ticket item every 15 years, and what would happen then? They would have to go to referendum to do that. So if you can analyze your roofs every year and look at the sections and replace section at a time, you can maintain that in your long-term budget. So it's not an astronomical cost, a compounding cost. That $10 million cost 15 years from now probably would be $15 million. So we address annual transportation replacement. We continue to provide the multi-tiered support system, professional development, bloodborne pathogen, hazardous training, and evaluation of enrollment trends and long-term plans for that, such as instituting a charter school. So some potential roadblocks are that current state law may change, and you know that the budget was just recently passed, so it took a while to get here this year. Changes in laws and regulations of state and federal government render disclaimer this budget assumption is incomplete or inaccurate. So budget assumption, we assume, and we're fairly accurate if we tweak a little bit, that district enrollment is estimated to decrease by 13 students from last year using the revenue limit calculation. The revenue limit calculation is based upon actual FTE, not head count. It's based upon what is that pupil? Is it a kindergarten? Is it a 0.5? Is it a 4K, a 0.4? That's the number used in that combined with the summer school count. So that's the third Friday count. That goes into the revenue cap, and the revenue cap is where the revenue basically comes from. That's why I use that number. We're assuming that the district will accept 128 students under the open enrollment law, and 126 students will leave the district under the open enrollment tuition waiver law. The district will continue to offer the 4K program, and health insurance costs will decrease by less than 1%, or increase by less than 1%. So we replace positions due to retirement and resignations this fiscal year. 4.5 teachers, 8 support staff, 1 high school principal, 1 assistant principal, and we added 5 teachers and 2 support staff. So where does the money come from? School finance regulations regulate that the amount of dollars the district can raise from property taxes and general state aid costs from the revenue cap. This district receives 95% of its money from these 2 sources. So 53% comes from property taxes, while 42% basically comes from state sources. Either in the revenue cap formula, you're going to get it from the state, or you're going to get it from the property taxes. If you get more from the state, you'll have to tax less. It basically inverts, and 95% of this money comes from these two sources. So where is the money spent? There's two different perspectives: expenditures by function, which is the purpose for which the expenditure is made, and then expenditures by object, which is the type of goods and services purchased. So if we look at the division of expenditures by function, 57% is equated to instruction, while pupil and staff support is 40%. But remember, this includes the multi-tiered, all the other activities that a school needs: libraries, psychologists, counselors, nurses, therapists, transportation. So it's really instructional related. So, and then 3% for the open enrollment and tuition payments. Expenditures by function, a simplistic breakup: 57, 40, and 3%. So if you look at it a different way, we're a people business, and most school districts are anywhere between salary and fringe benefits between 75% of their budget and 85% of their budget. We can see that wages and benefits for this budget is 78%, non-salary 22%. So one of the things, if you look at Fund 10 and that health insurance reduction, health insurance of Fund 10 is the second biggest ticket item in your budget. So that's big picture. If you can reduce your health insurance, you can go after you can have more money for your instructional purposes. So that 78% is wages and benefits, 22% non-salary. The simplistic pie graph shows that as well. So the Waupaca School District's property tax to support the 17-18 budget is estimated at $16,340,237. If we look at a mill rate analysis from the past years, and that's based upon property valuation of $1,000, you can see that in 2013, 2014, the mill rate was $10.65. 14-15, $11.16. 2015, $11.63, and then last year, $10.98. This year, we're projecting a 13-cent decline. So based upon that decline for a property valuation of $1,000, you can see that's a 13-cent decline, meaning a $13 reduction in taxes for a home valued at $100,000. And if you take that a little further, 100,000, 150,000, 200,000, 250,000, you can see $250,000 home is basically a $32.50 reduction. So the disclaimer to that is, so property valuation. So if I have a home valued at $100,000, but now the property valuation went up to $105,000, this could net. So we're looking at a reduction of mill rate showing that. So this is more of a mill rate over the past years, you can see. And I want to look at now surrounding school districts. So if I look at Clintonville, Iola, Manawa, and London, and then Waupaca and Waupaca and Wild Rose, you can see that their mill rates are $11 or $10.86, $10.34, $8.66, $10.31, $11.63, and then $8.32 or $8.65 and $15.60. If you go further the next year, $10.76, $11.11, $9.14, $9.83, then there we are at $10.98, $7.69, $8.08. Well, why is the mill rate less? Well, I talked about that 95% of that money. So we're getting property tax for 53%. 53% is out of the revenue cap. The property tax supports the budget. 53% state aid, 42%. They're reversed. They're getting, basically, their property tax is, they're getting 42% property tax, 53% state aid. Also, if you look at that, their property valuations in past years have went up, where ours have stayed flat. And another disclaimer to that, or I think the important thing to remember, we're the only district out of all those districts taxing below the allowable revenue cap. We're not even taxing to the max. They're taxing to the max. So I think that's an important disclaimer. So you can see the taxes over these past 2 years, and I'm using, I couldn't read this when I was doing it, so I'll look at this tax levy dollars collected. You can see actual tax dollars collected is 16.1 million basically in 15-16, 16-17, 15.863, and this year we're proposing 16.3 million. If I go back to this slide, this year we've added the $1 million state trust fund loan. And we projected that we'll get the $1 million in the bank, and we'll have to pay $200,000 plus 3% interest over the next 5 years. And in doing so, we have to make our first payment in March. So we have the $1 million in the bank, but the interest is $16,000. The interesting thing is when we put all the money into our local government investment pool, making over 7.5%, and even more in some cases, and we've already made up to $16,000 in interest in a few months. So we've already paid for the interest before even making our first payment. But we still have to collect it according to municipal finance law. So you can see that our taxes are relatively close to the 15-16 school year. So property valuation history. So here's the big numbers, property valuation, which drives that mill rate. Property valuation, $1.4 billion last year. The overall property value of all the land in the district is calculated. This year, it went up to $1.5 billion, which is a 4.24% increase, which is huge. Because if you take $1.5 billion on a revenue cap compared to $24 million, it's going to move that needle a lot faster. So property valuation went up, which is a good thing for economic factors within the school district. So what we also have going on at the same time, we have general aid loss. So over the same period of time, we've had $850,000 lost, $787,000, $1 million, $750,000. No, then, we had $28,000 to the good. But remember, we already lost $850,000, $780,000, $1 million, $749,000, so we're $28,000 better than the prior year. Not better overall. And then the next year we lost another $350,000, then $285,000, and then last year we gained $217,000. But remember all the losses. So what I'm talking about is the general aid loss has shifted that taxes, shifted the burden to the taxpayer. And you can see this year we're projecting a $93,000 better than last year. Well, I'll explain this way. So over the 9-year period, you can see that this district has lost basically $3.8 million in general state aid. So at the same time on that revenue cap, what happens is, how do you make up for that differential? Well, you make up for it in taxes. So we try to make up for it and only take what we need to the tune of $3.6 million. Not quite making up for it, we're $130,000 short. What else have we done? We could have taken a lot more at that time. We could have taken $956,000 more, $1.5 million more, $2.7 million more, $2.2 million, $2 million, $1.8, $1.2. This year we're projecting the revenue to be below the revenue cap by $485,000. Remember when I did the June meeting, I said we'd be about $472,000 underneath the allowable revenue cap. Now it's coming in about $485,000. So all the time that we were here and we're saying, okay, we're trying to keep up with our general aid loss, we were taxing below the cap. We could have took a lot more money at that time. So we only took what we need from our taxpayers. So why is that something special, at least to me? Only 5 school districts in the state of Wisconsin, only 5 last fiscal year, taxed at least $1 million below the allowable revenue cap. Only 5 out of 425 school districts. So if you look at that, there's Cadet, Dalesville, Gresham, Hudson, $65 million budget, big school, Menominee Indian school where they get most of their money from Fed. So really you could equate this to 4 school districts out of 424 school districts. So then I thought to myself, well, we're about $500,000 underneath the cap. How many within that same period of time would be there? The same number. It didn't change. So we're in that company of 5 school districts taxing below the allowable revenue cap. So if we have the scarcity thinking, or we have the law of abundance thinking, if you think since 2011, there have been 262 referendums to exceed the allowable revenue cap. The same period of time, we were taxing at least $1 million below the revenue cap. So our house was in pretty good fiscal order during this period of time. So how did we get there? How did we get to the place that we're in fiscal position we are? Well, we've had a 30% reduction in health insurance, giving us an opportunity to move to taxing below the cap, keeping us fiscally prudent, and then having more money for instruction. And I'm going to get to our cost, how much we spend per pupil on instruction too. And this will link to it. We're not spending enough on instruction then. I'm going to show you we are. Affordable Care Act, we didn't knee-jerk react and just cut all our employees 30 hours a week below. We didn't go that route. We took a steady as you go route, and it played into our favor. What else have we done to reduce taxes? Well, since I came here, we called the debt twice. We were able to call the debt twice. $528,000 savings on one of our calls, And then the 2013 call on the debt, $436,000. So we reduced taxes during this period of time by about $1 million. Only taking what we need, trying to take less and less from taxpayers. And if you recall, our debt will be completely debt-free after next fiscal year. So we will have no debt. So $3 million will be dropping off the tax rolls. And when we sell our property, because we will sell our property, we know that's estimated at about $600,000. As we built the athletic complex without going to a referendum, we spent about $2.5 million. And then we renovated the offices, about $300,000 total. The Comic Cafe, they kept on looking at our Comic Cafe, and then originally they said in the contract, we'll give you $10,000 for that Comic Cafe. And as we built it, then they said, well, we'll give you $18,000. That looks pretty good. And in the end, they said, we'll give you $23,000 for it, and now it's becoming part of their national campaign. And another thing, I have to give kudos to Linda Hosell here, because my whole office staff is wonderful. They all have their unique qualities. But we had Cross Anderson in here, and Cross Anderson have an architect team, and they're wonderful and everything like that. And they had designs and options and things that they thought were great. But I decided that look at people's strengths when you're working with them. And Linda Hosell had some aesthetic design. So I decided, like, Linda, you design it, you're in charge. She designed the cafe. She did what architects did whatever she wanted. And as we transcended that, that's who designed that cafe. They did what she wanted. So kudos to Linda for designing that cafe and probably giving us $23,000 to the booth. So tax levy disclaimer, the property tax levy and tax rates are estimates. Number of factors would change at the levy rate before the final levy is set by the school board in October the 26th. These factors include actual enrollment. We know we're pretty close, and it will be tweaked by DPI, no doubt, but we're close. We do know the property valuation, so it's determined already. That property valuation holds. And then on the state aid, we don't know yet. We'll know that shortly. So here's the comparison of other school districts, educational comparisons with surrounding school districts. It's really one of the most reliable methodologies to compare other districts, and based upon actual annual report data. So when I went back and to look at other school districts, you got the current educational cost, which is the overall instructional cost, support per student, and then the total educational cost, which is a combination of current educational cost plus transportation, facility, food service. So that's a total big multi-tiered system combined. So total education, current education. So how do we look? So we look like this. If we compare this to the state average per pupil, current educational cost is $11,307 per pupil. Surrounding school districts, $10,456. Waupaca, $10,556. So let's add on the multi-tiered system concept to that. State average, $12,888. Surrounding school districts, $12,13. And Waupaca, $12,883. Basically the state average. So the surrounding school districts, who are all taxing to the allowable maximum, are actually spending less per student. So here's the districts: Clintonville, Iowa, Matawan, London, Waupaca, whatever else. All taxing to the max, spending less on total educational cost per student. So why not compare that then to the CSUP 5, where there's 35 school districts? Well, same principle. 11,307 state average, 10,864. Okay, they're spending more, 10,864 on current educational costs, and then we're spending 10,556. But there again, put on total educational costs, CSUP state average, 12,266. Waupaca, right at the state average. So those 35 school districts are taxing to the allowable revenue cap, or exceeding the referendum. But they're still not spending as much as we are on total educational cost per student. So telling the truth and making someone cry is better than telling a lie and making someone smile. So not all the bringer of good news. I want to talk a little about enrollment. So our enrollment has been steadily declining, but this isn't uncommon because people certainly aren't having more children, and what brings people to a district is really employment. And if you look at, and you can have two factors. You can be like a Sun Prairie school district, and you can get 500 kids at once. That's not good, because then your revenue is based upon 3-year rolling averages, so what happens then is you don't have enough money. So you can expand too fast, or you can decline too fast. So one of the things with the charter school and with the 4K program being expanded perhaps at 0.6, we can increase this number. You can see a plateau. We knew this was declining. 2102, 2119, there's our 13 student decline. If I project it forward, I was off in this attrition model that I put together. It doesn't consider births, it doesn't consider moving in individuals to the community, but it's just basically a simplistic attrition moving forward with some constants in it. You can see that next year, I think if nothing changes, there's about a 45 student decline. So this is the revenue cap. This is what drives all the 95% of the money in our district, and how we can either tax for it or use property taxes, or how do we get that money. So what this says is it brings last year's aid over, it brings basically your taxes over, and it puts it in an amount. And then it gives you 2 3-year rolling averages. Past 3 years, and then one including your first year. And then they get 2 averages right here. And those 2 averages, this average is really important. This 2109 number, that 3-year rolling average this current year, well, we're waiting for that budget to pass. And that budget, last year, they give you a multiplication of per pupil aid on that number. And in that number, it was $250. And we were hoping that that number would drive up to $438 per student. Well, in the final, when the budget was passed, it was $450. $450 times 2109 gives us $836,000 worth of revenue, cash, in our revenue line this year. So that was great. So that brings our revenue right there. So that's the per pupil aid adjustment number. You can see down here is that property valuation number, which drives the mill rate at 1.5 million. Move over here. The revenue cap is built like this for that 3-year rolling average. It builds into, to try to, the declining enrollment exemption. It tries to say, if you're losing students, we're going to keep you whole. So if you have decline, they give you a declining enrollment exemption. Every year they recalculate all these numbers based upon that. Well, what they do with that is they say, okay, you lost X amount of students, like we did. We're going to put back this year $150,000, $160,000 for holding you harmless, trying not to harm you, to have a huge budget hole. And then as we move down, well, we didn't tax to the cap last year. We were 1.2 million underneath the cap, so we can put back another 803,000 on the cap. Then Greg and Maureen worked really hard on getting this transfer of service on the cap, which we can charge back on a revenue cap for teaching other students from other districts, so it's 65,000 I'm including on that. So as we move this down the revenue cap, you can see that here's our taxes, the 216,000 Fund 38, 3.1 million basically for debt service, and then 16,000, about 17,000 for property year chargeback. What happened is when people have delinquent taxes, at the end of the fiscal year, we have to pay them. So the municipality send us the taxes and say they're delinquent, you have to pay them. But the next year, we can put them on the tax rolls and spread them out to the $1.5 million worth of tax years. So that's how we get our $10.85 mill rate. This is the overall budget, $24,937,000 revenues. I won't go through that in too much detail. Expenditures, $24,937,587. Basically, this is a proposed balanced budget. It's within, the best I could do is within $93. So this is basically a balanced budget. Here's your 78% salary, fringe, and operating transfers. And here's how the breakout of all the details, elementary, middle school, high school, and open enrollment, postage, transportation, that's in your packet. This is the breakout of the overall budget. I'll go through the simplistic version, not the budget adoption methodology, which I created. And it basically shows we're going to have about a $24,937,587 expenditure budget. We are anticipating $24,937,494 revenues. That's a $93 shortfall. In our Fund 21, we have multiple funds. It's a donation fund. Comes in and out every year. We're anticipating about $121,000 in expenditures. We always have a fund balance you can see throughout that. Special education, that's about a $3.9 million budget. Special education has to equal 0 fund balance at the end of the year. So what does that mean? It really means this. Special education budget is not self-sufficient. So it's about 1/3 funded. So what happens is the Fund 10 has to supplement that budget. It has to supplement that budget to a tune of $2.4 million projected this year. So that's about a $4 million budget. Debt service, 2 more years. This is $3.1 million for debt service. We have capital projects money still, $120,000. Combination of both those. And our food service operation is about a $1.1 million operation, giving us basically about a $33.3 million budget overall for all these funds. This is what the budget adoption mechanism is. I'm not going to go through this into much detail. I can tell everybody's so excited about all these numbers. I can really tell it's absolutely exciting, apparently only to me in my room. So one of the things they make you, for the publication, which is required to go out to 2 weeks before your budget hearing, I think there's some laughing back there. I think it's endearing. So one of the things is the budget publication is broken out in a real complex mechanism, which is this, to get to the summary sheet that is published by state law or statute 65.90 that has to go to the public 2 weeks prior to the budget hearing, October 26th. So these are the breakout of Fund 10 revenues. I'll just point out one of the revenues. So federal monies, that's about 2.13%. You can see that federal monies, well, $616,000 a few years back, $648,000. Well, it's dropping. Federal money is coming in slower and slower each year. So just to show you that that's how the revenue works. The $24 million. Those are the numbers on the tie out expenditures. Breakout of law instruction. These are in your packet. And in your Fund 21, at $121,000, these are the details that the public would need to see. There's a special education budget, $3.9 million. Our debt service, capital projects, food service. And here's the budget publication that was sent to the newspaper. Will be published Thursday. It shows you the breakout. That's the 65.90 statute, so we're in compliance. And these are all the funds again. Summary detail shows our overall, basically proposed tax levy: 1.2, 12.9 million, 3.1 million, 216, 16, about 17,000. That gives us the 16,340,237 total tax. So designated fund balance. So at the end of the fiscal year, I told you that I don't come in. We've never come in under over budget, and so this fiscal year, at the end of the fiscal year, we have, well, we did all these projects, $3 billion, about $2.8 million worth of project, and we came in then, and I asked the board, and the board approved, and to transfer $300,000 into our capital projects, and the board, our auditors concurred when they're here sitting for 2 weeks. But then what happened is DPI said, no, we don't want you to do that. We argued nicely. And what happened is that I lost and the auditors lost, so we had to keep the $300,000 in Fund 10. Well, we designate all our funds in certain funds, but we commingle them for the maximum amount of interest rate. So in the long run, it doesn't hurt our interest, but it shows perhaps a arbitrary inflated fund balance here. But I'll show you, but either way, so we're just spending the $300,000 on a Fund 10 to pay for the capital projects just because they wouldn't let us put in Fund 49, where we thought it would be the correct way. Because a capital project seems to be a capital project, but DPI said no. So we came in at the end of the fiscal year after doing all this, on the books, $612,000. I'm saying it's $312,000, but either way, at the end of the fiscal year, that's what we came in with, giving us a fund balance of $9.5 million. So look at that. Okay, that's a lot of money, right? So I looked at it and I said, okay, if we come in with $612,000 on our Fund 10 budget, that's a 2.5%, within 2.5% of the budget. If you take my number, the $312,000, that's coming in with within 1.3%. But if you look at the overall $33 million budget or $34 million budget, we're within 0.009 or 0.019. So you can pick your number, but either way, we came into the good. So fund balance, that's where we're at, $9.5 million. If we have revenues, expenses, $93 shortfall this year, that drops $93. Let me talk a little bit more about fund balance because it was a huge thing at another district I was at. Fund balance, why do you have a fund balance? Well, Sandy created this board report, and it shows that she had me create it, and It was her idea. And it really shows you this. It shows you that our expenses are steady. They're a steady operation. Every month we're paying out X amount of dollars, and then at the end of the fiscal year, by June, we're paying out 6 payrolls. We're paying out lots of money. But money from the taxes and general state aid and any grant money, that comes in 4 times a year. So we have bell curves, highs and lows all the time. So why do you have a fund balance? Well, a multitude of school districts, and I'd say over half, short-term borrow them. They short-term borrow money, let's say to get to those low periods of time, about $3 million. So then, where are they borrowing that money from? Well, where are they borrowing that money? They're paying it out of Fund 10. And then they have to pay interest on that money. So their $3 million becomes $3,050,000. So you're already doing an operating transfer of $2.4 million out of Fund 27 to supplement, basically to make special education whole. So then these districts, what happens is they have to then short-term borrow. So they're taking away another $3 million from their Fund 10 budget, $3,050,000. But they have to pay that back, arbitrage laws, within the same fiscal year. You can't take a loan. They can't do another short term over another short term. You can't pay it back with your next borrowing. So what happens is that they have problems. So what do? Then they end up going to referendum to exceed the revenue cap. And what else happens is their fund balance continues to deplete. So then they have to borrow more and more and more, and then pretty soon they're zero. So fund balance can go away in an instant. If you put that calculation together, and I had to for other districts, it can be wiped out within about a 5-year period. So fund balance is healthy. And one of the fund balance principles is it helped their bond rating. We would have had the best bond rating of all this, just comparable to any other school district. The only factor that played into our not getting the best rating was because their socioeconomic medium income types of deal. So we know that we're in a healthy position. So that's the fund balance explanation. So I want to always show that we have a maintenance plan. It's an ebb and flow. We have 15-year maintenance checks. We have a multitude of infrastructure that you care for the taxpayers. We have generators, HVAC. We have plumbing. So we try to project forward to see what we need every year. We try to repair and anticipate. So we have bathroom fixtures, we have window replacements, we have pavement resealing. We see we've done this year, within that budget, we've done the high school, the middle school, the WLC, all resealed the pavement. And that's not cheap. That's $50,000, $60,000 to reseal a parking lot, but it's still better than digging it all up and repairing it to a tune of hundreds of thousands of dollars. So when we have a multitude of ceiling repairs, roofing replacement, you know we have a roof replacement plan analyzed every year. So we have a plan, and we have maintenance contracts and annual contracts. So there's a constant infrastructure part of this budget to keep up with the thousands and thousands of people that move through these buildings and take wear and tear on them each year. And I think if you look at the high school, it's in pretty good shape for being built in 2000. Pretty well taken care of. So why is this slide in here? Why do we have a tennis team? I just ask myself, why do we not have a tennis team? Okay, that's my question. There's multiple options because of the district's financial position. So we have multiple options. So what do? We strive for what the TOEFL have used for years as their guiding principles, be impeccable with our word. We don't take anything personal. We don't make assumptions about others or ourselves. We always do our best to be skeptical but learn to listen. And I think this is an important quote. The world is changed by your example, not by your opinion. That's our multi-tiered system. That's why everything is interrelated. Everything you do matters. This concludes my portion of the evening. Thank you so much.
Well, almost concludes because we can have some questions.
Yes, of course.
Okay, Carl, I have just a couple comments and then a question. First of all, and these are just things that I just wondering if you'd shed some light on. There's been a lot of articles about from the recent budget hearings and whatnot about some changes that might affect us. First of all, I think it was our local Senator Luther Olson who said payout from the state to the districts. He wants to see change so that you don't have to do that short-term borrowing. Are you familiar with any of that?
I'm familiar. I highly, that would be highly unlikely. I believe it would pass, but it would be a great for everybody.
Yeah, I don't think it's gonna go this round, but I think that's coming. You're shaking your head.
Yeah, so the difference would be, right now, and correct me if I'm wrong here, I believe school districts receive only 10% of the total allocation in October, and then they receive a couple of 25% payments,
Right.
and then in June, they receive the remaining 35%. This would equal, or it would distribute it equally over the
Right.
quartiles of the year. It would not have much of an impact, as Carl has already indicated, because we don't need the short-term borrow.
No, it wouldn't be so much for us. It would be in place for all districts, however, so
Correct.
if we ever were in a situation, at least that'll alleviate some of that. So I just thought I'd mention that. Secondly, along those same lines, there was a lot of discussion, I know, and I read some articles about changing the formula for summer school.
Mhm.
Is that gonna be, was that passed in this budget, the formula?
I have not heard if
I
that
don't believe
was
it was
part of
passed.
this
It would-
budget.
It would be good if it.
It would
There
be.
was a lot of discussion on, because you can only get point something or other.
Correct.
And then they wanted to increase that to to 1, I think.
Mhm.
But I was reading several articles about the discussion going on about that.
Yeah, well, John can attest to it. It's literally you have to get thousands of minutes to equate to 1. And he's done an outstanding job of increasing our summer school count this year. That has risen, and it's hard to move that needle. The program has really taken off with John at the helm. And I wanted to say one thing, and I think I failed to say it about taxes, and because I have lots of taxpayers sometimes come to my office, and I'd like to take the most angry taxpayer, because I love them the most, and then they come in my office, and I literally do. And because we work through it, because one of the things is what you see when we put taxes forward, it's that number's that number. But what municipalities do, and it's taken me, I have a great friend in Spring Green who became my great friend and we started out like bad tax guy, right? And so one of the things is that municipalities all do their own thing. So they have assessed value. They take that assessed value of that property, and some municipalities, that's where it gets crazy. Some are 80% taxing on assessed value. Some are 120%. They all do their own thing. And that's when the taxpayer gets their bill, they'll say, oh, school tax, that doesn't match what the business manager said. And then they're in my office saying, why it doesn't match? And then we refigure it out. We have to go back to the milieu of calling municipalities, how did this configure, and do that. So that's what you see from the school is the number. And then another thing, which is always probably a pet peeve, is the school tax credit. That's been an issue, and I'm sure you can speak to that, Pat, for years. Can't we get the school tax credit directly to us? That would be nice. But the school tax credit goes to the municipalities, and how it gets distributed to us is convoluted. Some way it gets to us. They show it on your tax bill, but if we had it directly, our taxes would be lower. So give us that. That's what I would be asking for.
Okay. And my final, actually, a question on the budget. Did you build in, or maybe you do every year, I suspect, but was there a percentage increase built into your budget for staff increases for salary?
Well, the staffing was settled, so the contracts are all settled, so it's built right in.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
For the current year.
Yeah. So we settled contracts early, which was great, and that's always the goal. If we can settle our contracts before the budget comes out, our salaries are set.
Okay. So that's already.
So that number rolls forward.
That rolls forward.
Right.
Okay. Thank you.
With your projections on page 30 of student counts going into the future, I obviously can see how you moved forward with the numbers from year to year. Anything else that comes into some base assumptions that may not be reflected in here?
I wouldn't count on that. Out of all the things I've done, and I remember being in Johns Creek at the school, the business superintendent said, I want Applied Population Laboratory to do the analysis. And she looked at me and she said, no, you're not gonna pay for that, you're doing it yourself. So ever since then, so I thought, okay, because they have a multitude of pages, births, incoming, economic, social businesses coming in, and all those factors, and I thought, okay, I'll do it myself. But mine's been fairly accurate over the years. So then I went to River Valley School District, and I looked through the annuals of the Applied Population Laboratory Analysis, and they were totally inaccurate. So it's really a wild, wild west guess. So I'm hoping my numbers are wrong, but I have to put something down. And I think if we go by attrition only, that's all it is. And a whole bunch of other factors could make that better.
And when you created this forecast, did you have a charter school
No, I did not.
in mind?
I did not.
Did you say it was minus 45?
That's how the attrition formula worked out. If I kept constants.
And the open enrollment net remained throughout at 0
Yeah.
in your,
Mhm. And it's about equal right now. It's 126, 128, so.
okay, very good. Obviously, more to come before we get to the budget hearing itself. Any other questions?
When will we be debt-free?
We'll be debt-free. We'll have one more year of debt next fiscal year. 2.9 million will go on the tax rolls next fiscal year, which would be 17, 18, 19, and that'd be it.
So the end of June of 2019.
Correct.
How many schools will have that?
I don't know that answer. There's probably not many though.
No question.
Can we talk a little bit about the budget process in terms of the meeting and the posting? Because some of us have a little conflict with that meeting date. We didn't know that date ahead of time. So you posted the numbers.
Mhm.
And what's our window for having our budget hearing?
Well, we posted 2 weeks. So it's posted and it will go into the paper Thursday, correct? And literally it's stated in the posting, the date of the meeting. So we would have to, we could potentially, well, it takes it, because
We only publish once a week.
because they only publish once a week, it goes in on Thursday. We couldn't run, that'd be running into November, correct?
Yeah, and I don't know when you
Yeah,
have to certify your tax.
we need to
levy.
certify the tax levy before November 1st. So,
I can make it, but I have to cut something else. I can schedule it short.
I can change.
I'm out of the state.
I'm sorry, what did you say?
I said I can make it for about 45 minutes, and I'm gonna.
it would take a half hour.
But even so,
max.
it's like the worst ever.
Half hour, I would say.
Is there any way, I mean, when we say we have to get it between a deadline, is it by the end of October?
Yes, November 1st, yeah.
So we couldn't do October 31st? No.
Now we can't.
Okay.
I thought you said it isn't going in the paper till Thursday.
Yeah, but the
Well,
deadline for the paper is
Monday.
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 You have to get it to the paper first.
Yeah.
Okay.
So just,
I'm not sure that we would be able to change it at this point.
In the future, maybe if we could just have it.
Yeah, I
set
didn't
when
know that. I
date
wouldn't have
is.
scheduled it.
Because that's,
Yeah.
I mean, I really want to be there for that. That is, there's no way you can be there.
I'm gonna be gone for a week.
Yeah.
We will ensure that the board has the information and materials in advance of that meeting.
Okay.
You'll be able to look at it, provide or develop whatever questions you may have in advance of the meeting. Certainly, I think you would be open to any discussion that may be needed in advance of that meeting on a one-by-one basis. We cannot meet as a group, obviously, because we cannot act unless it's a posted meeting. But I'm sure Mr. Hayek will get that information out to us as quickly as possible, so everyone has access to the data.
Absolutely, and there won't be, just like in the past, there might be, there'll probably be 3 changes. The state aid would be tweaked a little bit. This overall budget, the expenses will stay the same. The overall revenues will stay the same. The budget will basically, this is the budget. There'll be some tweaking of what our general rate is. If it comes a little better, we'll probably reduce taxes a little bit. And so, but it would be relatively the same as this budget. And if there's a
Remember,
quorum.
the last 2 years, he's been
Oh, yeah, I don't doubt, and Betty, I'm sure, speaking for, we don't doubt the numbers are gonna change too much, but it's just a formality.
Yeah,
It's nice for the whole board to be a part of it.
Certainly.
And I think what, in the future, we just need to know that date earlier, and we can plan accordingly, that's all.
That'll be here, correct?
Correct, yes. Other questions? Okay, thank you very much. Okay, that moves us on to section 8 of the agenda, which we will start with reports reports on meetings attended. I know a number did attend the meeting over in Neenah.
Pat?
Yeah,
I
and Steve, the three of us.
attended it.
Okay.
It was informative. The first part was very entertaining. The Neenah School District, their string band, it wasn't a quartet, but their string orchestra, played dinner music, and it was incredible music. It was lovely. It was very entertaining. The program was very long and very intense. It wasn't like other meetings that have been lighthearted and whatever. But there was a lot of good information. It was about the lobbying that's taking place for different items in our state budget and how things happen and what gets approved and what doesn't get approved. And it was insightful, but there was a lot. But I'm glad we went.
She's being very generous.
Yeah, she is very nice. It was a little boring.
It was a lot.
Signing up for next year.
That's a lot.
Yeah.
There were no cute art awards or anything like that. But it was informative.
Any other reports that the board would like to provide this evening?
Are we doing the monitoring, not monitoring, class visits? Yeah, coming up.
We can certainly include visits.
Isn't that coming up?
Well,
Tuesday night?
we can include visits in the reports for the school board.
I'll have to do 2 next month.
Okay.
Yeah, I was over at the middle school today. I had a lovely visit, actually, and you know, just in the spirit of keeping things pretty simple. I did talk to Mr. Bob Welch, for a long time. You know, you all receive things. He's passionate about bees, and you all got an email from him on that. But we had really a lovely chat. And I also, while I was there, one of our recently retired teachers, Mrs. Polovitsky, Mary, came in, and she's volunteering 2 days a week in the middle school, and that was fun. I didn't realize she was doing that, and it's great to have some of our staff, obviously, who have retired, to come back in and help on their own time. So that was really nice. And then I went down, I wanted to see the newly changed name, Mrs. Molly, formerly DeRay, now Mrs. Fair. See her classroom. I hadn't seen it in the 5th grade, so I wandered around the 5th grade a little bit. And that was interesting. I did have one thing I wanted to bring up. I talked to the students. I asked them about Chartwell, not by name, but how were the lunches. They said the food was great. They did have one little concern. They said it takes too long in the line to get their food, and I don't know anybody's here from the middle school tonight administratively. The food's good, but it takes too long to get it. I don't know why that is, but that seems to be a little bit of a problem, and so that was brought out, so I'm just passing that along. And then I visited Mr. Steve Wilson in his classroom, which happened to be my old classroom 100 years ago. Looks a lot different now with his 6th graders, and that was a really nice visit with him. He actually had 7th graders coming in when we talked. And I sat in on some math exercises, which was kind of fun to see. But I truly am one of those people who, you know, do you know as much as a 7th grader? Or 6th grader, I'd be in real trouble when it comes to the math, because some of the things they're working on are still pretty tough. So it was great. It was a wonderful visit, and I had a good time. I do want to put in one plug. I don't know if all the board is aware of, but at the middle school 2 weeks ago, I think it's 2 weeks ago, and a little bit of a kudos to Winchester. Winchester sponsored in the community a string quartet, a professional group that played at the Methodist Church on a Monday night. During the day, they came into the middle school, and I talked to Mr. Biba and Ms. Rogny about that. They had a wonderful time. And just so you know, the musicians, who are professional musicians at the Methodist Church that night, the man who was kind of in charge of them mentioned that he was in the schools during the day, and he said, we've been in a lot of schools, he said, over the course of time, but the fifth grade group, or he said all the fifth graders, I don't know if they were all fifth graders, but they were packed into the band room. He said they were about as good a group as he's ever worked with in terms of children. He said they listened attentively, they were curious, they asked good questions, and it was all unsolicited information to the group that was listening to here that night. So I thought that was really great to hear from somebody who has been to a lot of different schools. So that's kind of kudos to everybody involved. But it was wonderful. And I just mentioned the fact that they came into the school as being a kind of an interest, a really wonderful thing, because he, as the man in charge, who's a professional musician, said he grew up in Iowa, and he said he came from a small town, much like Waupaca, and he said his entire growing up from K through 12, he never had much of an opportunity to ever hear a violin or a cello or any stringed instrument. He heard one time in his whole career somebody come into the school with some little thing that he could still remember, and it kind of impressed him. So he said the fact that he had all these fifth graders, and they were real interested and whatnot, he said you'd be surprised that sometimes that really makes a big difference for kids. So they like to do that, because he knew in his own case that was one of the things that was lacking for him, and here he is a professional musician today. So it was wonderful to hear all of that. So that was my visit.
The latter part of that was part of the Bach.
Part of the Bach week, that's correct. Yeah.
I didn't make a visit this month, but was part of the homecoming festivities last night, and the skits and everything, and kudos to the wonderful job the young people did at the skits. The one thing I noticed in the past, there's always been like 4 or 5 kids that do the whole skit, or video, whatever it is now. And I counted in a lot of the different skits, there were 25 to 30 kids in the junior skit and the senior skit. And then it was lovely to see that the staff did something too. And it was very, very positive and really uplifting for our school district. It was very well done. And I was honored to be asked.
I did make a couple of visits, but I only did it on my own because I wanted to talk to Mrs. Kempfert, because they have a group that communicates with some Chinese school, and they were going to be doing some Skyping with them, and I wanted to find out how it went. Well, it didn't work out yet, so they were going to work on it some more. At the same time, I went and visited Mrs. Harrington, and I was just impressed with her. She had one little boy who was kind of being a little rascal, but the way she handled it was just great. She just put her arms around him and just whispered him in his ear and settled him down, and then they were able to go on with their lesson plan. But she handled it extremely well. And today I did something that I've been wanting to do, and that's come over here and eat and find out how good the food is. And it was very good. Of course, I've eaten Army food, so I can eat anything.
It was a good testimonial.
But the food was very good. It really was. And I ran into quite a few teachers and had some talks with quite a few of them, and it was a very, very good trip over here today. And I got to eat with my old kids that I worked with for many years, and it was just fun.
Can I ask you, how many students, your old kids, and you're talking about
Special ed, yeah.
Yeah, how many does she have this year?
I think she has 12, I'm not sure. Does she have 12 children in there? I think she has 12.
Is that a big number?
Yeah, I think it is.
Okay, because I know it
I think
varies.
she has 3 aides, and I wouldn't want to be in with 3 aides. But anyway, yeah, they were all, yeah, they were just neat kids, and
Yeah, good.
I enjoyed it.
All right, very good. Thank you, everyone, for the time that you spent on the varying activities. With that, we will move on to upcoming meetings.
October 19th and 20th is the WASB School Law Seminar and Workshop. October 26th, as we've already outlined, is the budget hearing. November 9th, we will have a special board meeting that will focus on student achievement.
What time is that?
It will be from 11 a.m. to 2 p.m.
Must be Saturday?
Thursday. November 14th is our regularly scheduled meeting, and then there are various dates for WASB governance workshops.
I think, Mr. Dean, I think there's a date, November 4th or 5th, whatever Saturday date that is. There's something in Stevens Point. Help me out here.
It's a WSB.
Yeah, I'm planning on going to, so I'll talk to Carol
Sure,
about that one. It's a
absolutely.
Saturday during the day, correct? I think it's the 4th or 5th.
I
It's
don't
not on
have
that
that.
sheet.
We'll find out.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
On a Saturday, you don't hit overtime.
I know.
Okay, moving along, third Friday enrollment counts.
Yeah, we've touched on this a little bit, but I'll just briefly compare. Last year, bodies in seats, we had 2,163 students. This year, bodies in seats, we have 2,154. So it's a difference of 9 students. Of course, as Mr. Hayek alluded to, when you start looking at FTE and membership, those numbers are a little bit different. So that's all part of the formula that Mr. Hayek outlined, but just a brief update for the board.
Next item under administration.
We have a number of students that have made application for early graduation, and we're looking for board approval as presented.
Everybody's had the opportunity to review that.
I would move approval of these requests for early graduation.
Second.
Motion and second, of those, I believe it was 10 requests.
Yes.
I was just gonna say, does that affect our count in January?
It will, yes.
Okay, there's a motion and second. Any discussion?
I don't think
They don't
the
graduate.
January count is the second Friday.
Early graduation?
Wouldn't that go to the semester, which is the end of January?
Okay. Oh, that's true. Oh, you're right.
So it doesn't.
I was thinking December, my bad.
College.
Yeah. I'm thinking my graduation. I'm focused on the end, man. I'm gonna finish this thing.
Okay.
Was that my bad, did you say?
Yeah, my bad.
Okay, there's a motion and second. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Very good.
The next item is relative to change in our medical advisor. Standard G of the administrative code requires school districts to have identified a medical advisor, and with the retirement of Dr. Earl Anderson, we need a new medical advisor. This is an unpaid consultant position. This position works very closely with our school nursing staff to make sure that they have the guidance necessary to provide school health-based services. So I believe Dr. Dory Happ will be signing on as our medical advisor with the board's acknowledgement.
Do we need,
Motion that we approve.
do we need to approve or just is it informational at this point?
How did you have that?
It says it has to be approved.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I'll,
that's
Steve made a motion already. I'll second Steve's
Okay.
motion.
Motion and second. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you, and thank you to Dr. F.
And then the final item under the administrator tonight is Charter School Policy 896, as the board prepares for consideration of a charter. It's important that we have a charter policy. So as Sandy Robinson has outlined for us in the past, we did use the Policy Resource Guide Services from WASB as the baseline for this policy. And I would ask our Director of Teaching and Learning, Mr. Don Smith, to speak to the policy itself.
So as you look at it, the second paragraph in there kind of discusses that it gives the ability for the school board to say, yes, we could create a contract to create a charter school. So that's like the first thing that's outlined in there, saying, yes, it's possible to create a charter school in the district. The second one in there says that it kind of really gives the school board the ability to say that the charter school has to be in line with the district's mission and beliefs, and kind of it has to address the district and state educational goals. So it really kind of gives the board a chance that if there's a charter school proposed that is not in line with the beliefs of where we're trying to go and where the board wants to go, the board would have the ability to say, this is not something that we want to go back and tweak it and give the board like some leverage, something to stand on and say that this is okay or this is not okay. So that's what we're really looking at. The third one gets into that the board will have some oversight, but it's important to notice that it says that the charter schools also have to have the autonomy in there. That's an important note. The charter school would have a governing board that will really be the board that oversees the school, and then the school board, once every 5 years, that's when the charter school kind of come up for review. And so that's always kind of an important note for school boards to know, is that it's really that charter school governing board that's going to oversee the charter school, and they're the ones that are going to have the autonomy to kind of do things, as long as, of course, we're still meeting the educational goals, students are still being successful. But it's really that governing board that's going to oversee them at that point. And you guys are the ones that will give them the right to oversee it and have the autonomy.
Do you think, based
Before we go with any questions, do we have a motion that we can discuss?
Okay.
Do we have a motion on the policy code 896?
I would move approval of the policy.
Motion to approve
Second.
and second. Discussion.
Okay, thank you. Is it your experience, thinking of the second paragraph there where you outlined the fact that the district has the opportunity to offer or establish a contract? Is it your opinion, based on your experience, that we should do that, create a contract?
Yes, you would create one that would outline what does the school have, or what's considered to fall under their range of their authority versus what is the school district still in charge of.
And what would be the timeline for that?
That would have to come to the board, say if we're trying to create one, it's going to come very soon in the next couple of meetings.
November, December.
Yes, that the board will go through that. And so typically this kind of goes back and forth initially.
Okay, so back and forth initially, so you're suggesting that there's initially there'll be some kind of a document that can be altered and changed and then sent back, and they can alter it, blah, blah, blah. And who formulates the first one?
Typically the governing board would, because they're saying this is what we want to do differently. And then it kind of goes to the district kind of vets it to say this is actually possible or not. Like, for example, if they said we wanted a student-teacher ratio of 4 kids to 1 teacher, well, we know that fiscally we could not do that. And so then that would kind of go back saying this is not possible. Let's come back with what is actually physically possible.
So this board right here is just gonna wait until we receive something, is that?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Correct.
And then go from there.
I had suggested it might be valuable to have a significant portion of the meeting to talk about the relationship between the authorizers, which is our school board, and the charter that we'd be authorizing, particularly with regard to autonomy and what's involved with that. The trade-off is these schools get a good degree of autonomy, but they also have a very significant degree of accountability. And so you want all of that in place. And I do think it's worth some discussion or further discussion before the charter comes to us, actually.
Well, I mean, I would agree the policy, at least in that last paragraph, is somewhat vague as to what the oversight is.
Yes.
With regard to the charter as well as that autonomy. So I think the board will have to have some more discussion. I'm not saying that the policy be more specific, but the understanding of the board as well as those involved in the charter would have a better understanding of how that oversight works.
And the Department of Public Instruction has it's a checklist essentially with all the requirements, both for the school and the governance board or governance council, I think we'll probably end up calling it, so there's no confusion with the school board. So a lot of that is spelled out in legislation, what the relationship will be. And the good thing is, there are lots of charter schools, successful charter schools in the state. And I think there is a good structure available to us where the board can feel confident in allowing the autonomy and the freedom to do something differently.
As long as we're just talking about the board, there's two boards, obviously our board and the charter school board. How are the charter school board members to be either appointed, elected, or on that board?
That'll be something that the charter school would write. The board itself will write their regulations of how they do that and how they would eventually get new members. Every governance board kind of functions differently, so that's where that board would essentially write would be their rules. So initially you start with your planning committee, and a lot of times the initial governance board kind of comes from the advisory council that they might currently have functioning. And then from there, they write their rules for how they function.
How many members, how long they might be on the
Correct.
board,
Yep,
what
all.
Positions of authority on the board. That's
What their term lengths are,
Yeah.
how they go about selecting new members, all that is outlined as part of the work that board then has to do.
Okay, and they'll do that prior to bringing something to this board?
I'm trying to think of, because that's where you get the, because when you approve the contract, it's like the contract from the school district board. I would assume that it would be assumed they're going to do all of that.
I believe if we go back to our timeline, that identification of that board happens in November.
So it's pretty clear.
And the charter then is projected to be presented to the board in December.
Okay.
Okay. Other questions?
The only thing I would add on there when we talk about autonomy is that every charter school is different with that, and that's what that contract's about. That contract clearly defines what would this school be able to do, what it will not be able to do. That doesn't mean because one charter school will do it, when another one came, that contract would then define what would be different about that one. So it's just important to know. It's like
And I'm only using this as an example, reading last year in the paper, I think it's Appleton has 7 charter schools. Each one has a different contract. And each one might be quite different from the other, could be.
Yes. I think actually like 18 charter schools.
Yeah, I was gonna say, it's
No.
more like.
Oh, I'm sorry.
But yeah, every
Somebody had
single one.
7, anyway.
Yes.
They listed
Yes.
all the different school districts. But each one could be different, and some of the points would be pretty similar, but then there could be quite a variety of ideas in there.
Yes, very
Yeah,
good.
okay.
Okay. Other questions or discussion? We have a motion and second to adopt Code 896 as written. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
I'm gonna abstain just because nobody's told me that I don't wanna goof all this up, and my daughter works for this company, so I'm daughter-in-law, so I would rather do that than to
We'll
goof
note and
something up.
we'll note that. Motion passes. Okay. That brings us to the consent agenda.
I move approval of the consent agenda.
Second.
Motion and second, any questions? We'll go with a roll call.
Okay, he usually does it, so I was surprised. Steve Hackett, Pat Fair,
Aye.
Steve Shambo,
Aye.
Sandy Robinson,
Yes.
Betty Mannion,
Yes.
Dimitri Martin,
Aye.
Steve Johnson.
Yes. Okay, with that, I'll entertain a motion as presented on the agenda, item number 10.
I would move that we adjourn into closed session in accordance with Wisconsin statutes 19.85, parent 1, parent C, regarding a disciplinary matter involving a high school teacher.
Okay.
Second.
second. Again,
Dimitri Martin.
Aye.
Betty Mannion.
Aye.
Sandy Robinson.
Aye.
Steve Shamrow.
Aye.
Steve Hackett.
Aye.
Pat Fair.
Aye.
Steve Johnson.
aye. As we adjourn into that closed session, we will give time for a